here with us today, and scheduled for today's meeting really focuses us on the issue, 3 particular issues. 1 speaks to the white paper on local government. 2 speaks to the question principally about the local government elections. And then 3, naturally, there is a 3rd piece of legislation that is coming on board that has been, or that speaks to the interrelation between national treasuries withholding of funds to certain municipalities and that process. Of course, part of the discussion has been undertaken interrelated to the committees on cooperative governance, but also has been dealt with the Standing Committee on Public Accounts. This gives an opportunity to this committee to engage with the department so that we could that go from there. So just in that regard, it is common cause for me that I think I'm well informed that the Minister of Cooperative Governance should be on the call, if I'm not mistaken. Is the Minister on? I will. Okay, let me, before we get on to that, I see Minister Sabisa is here. Sawubona Nkosi.
Good morning, Honorable Chair and Honorable members and all officials in the platform.
Awuzwa-ke sibonge kakhulu Minister ukuba nathi namhlanje. I will then in a moment officially open the meeting. Can Denver, will you put the agenda so that we can adopt it accordingly? Thank you very much. On the agenda for today, like I've already alluded to, is opening and welcome, the presentation by COPTA, deliberations, and any further announcements that go from there. Is there a member who will move for the adoption of the agenda today?
I will move, Honorable Douglas. I move for the adoption of the agenda. Thank you.
Morning, Honorable Douglas, and thank you very much. Is there a member who will second the adoption of the agenda?
Honorable Sigede, Chair, second.
Thank you very much, Honorable Sigede. Thus, the agenda is just duly adopted. Honorable members, in opening this particular meeting, may I recognize any apologies that come from Mashile? Are there any apologies that have been submitted for today's meeting?
Good morning, Chair and honorable members and officials on the platform. The apology that we've received is from the Deputy Minister of Finance, Honorable Sarupen. Thank you, Chair.
That's the only apology that has been sent. So I'm assuming that all others, as a political party that will make a submission of an apology. Great. I suppose with no further apology, the only apology I'll put is I'll apologize on behalf of Kaizer Chiefs for their performance the other day, and the matter will remain dealt with in that manner. Beyond that, we will not discuss that particular.
On October, Chairman.
These are the pains I'm going through at the moment. But let us then proceed. Honorable members, I think it is now common cause, one, that as we head towards November the 4th, there's no greater or more important sphere of government than that of local government. We have, in this particular committee, highlighted before that no one lives nationally. All of us live in a local municipality. We live in a locale. Municipalities are crucial in the delivery of basic services to our citizens in the country. As the Committee on Appropriation, we've looked extensively on matters that deal with the Division of Revenue Bill, which allocates to the sphere of government its allocation. Along with that, there have been many submissions that have been done about how do we much more effectively finance local government, given the pressures that it is facing both from consumers who have to honor its own obligation as submissions made by SALGA in this committee, given the on-sale of bulk services both in electricity and water. And so on the electricity part, obviously with various municipalities being able to, or citizens being able to take themselves off the grid. But the second component of that is the urgent pressures around reticulation of water. So there can never be a greater debate, and it is why, as a committee, we felt it important that we engage the Ministry of Cooperative Governance to be able to say, how do we attend to this question of the equitable share as it speaks to municipalities? Secondly, how do we deal with some of the challenges that have occurred with the withholding of some of that equitable share? Thirdly, as I've already alluded to, the white paper on local government and what its allocations are. And lastly, and in closing, as we prepare towards the elections on November 4th, and the minister already having proclaimed those on Friday, now begins the preparation and how we go from there. So it is within that framework. I say again that as a committee, we are not engaging on some of the programmatic issues, but effectively only deal in principle with the matters that pertain to the three aspects that I've spoken to and the financing thereof. So let me, with those broad remarks, recognize the Minister of Cooperative Governance, who is on the platform, Minister Thabisa. Welcome you, and thank you, Honorable Minister, and give you the platform. If you could introduce the team, and then we can proceed from there. Thank you very much, Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Maimane. Special greetings to all honorable members of this committee. I am accompanied by the Deputy Minister, Dr. Masimula, and administratively, our Director General, who is in the platform when he opens the presentation, Mr. Changana will introduce the technical team in the platform. And greetings to all colleagues and the support staff in this meeting. Honorable Chair, as you rightly said, we are doing now the countdown to 4 November, which is a critical election in our country, as it is where people live. The good choice that will be made on the 4th of November will give a fresh air in the local government space. The complaints that we are dealing with currently, key to resolve them is competent and capable councillors who, after assuming office, will appoint capable and competent administration and hold the administration accountable. The white paper review on local government is going to be a game changer. We have championed this project, and if it all goes according to our plans, it must go back to Cabinet this month towards the end of August, and on the 15th of September, we want to officially launch the white paper so that it becomes a document known by everybody and all implications it carries on the professionalization of staff and calling the public to elect competent and capable councillors, and also come forward with a revised model in terms of funding to ensure that our municipalities are made viable, because a one-size-fits-all has been confirmed. It's not working, but a differentiated approach will be the one to resolve many of the systemic challenges that we are dealing with. Lastly, Honorable Chair, as the ministry responsible in driving the preparations for the local government elections, all is intact. And we are advanced in terms of the preparations. The interministerial committee has been meeting on a monthly basis and now is going to meet fortnightly in order to ensure that all preparations are intact as we receive constant reports from all key departments, including the net joints, SAPS, and we are looking forward to a credible elections that will bring a fresh air in the challenges our people are experiencing in the wards in which they reside. All our presentation will be led by the Director General, Mr. Changana, who accordingly will deploy as he wishes, and he will introduce our team. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. With your permission or through you, Director General, Mr. Changane will make presentations on our behalf, and we're looking forward to a constructive engagement. Indeed, the issue of the stopping of the equitable share, we have engaged in other platforms, but we are quite willing to lay out the way forward so that we do not experience what we experienced in the month of July. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Minister, and thank you for your remarks. I welcome the Director General. Just to allude to the fact that members have been sent the presentation, so I guess the request is to highlight key salient points, and then members can have sufficient time for deliberations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Good morning to you, and good morning to honorable members of the committee. I am accompanied by a team of DDGs and chief directors. Let me first introduce Dr. Kevin Naidu, who is going to lead us in making this presentation on the white paper. Dr. Kevin Naidu is responsible for policy, governance, and administration in the department. We also have acting DDG, DDG Cheney, who is responsible for local government operations in the department. We do have Dr. Albert Ngwena, who is the special advisor to the minister. We also have Advocate, I don't see Advocate Marna Danglikok, who is a chief director responsible for governance in Dr. Naidu's branch. We do have our CFO on the call as well. Ms. Funaneng Matlati is here as well. And we have Ms. Sylvia Geldeblom, who is contracted to the department, but assisting both Mr. Cheney and Dr. Naidu. Those are the people that we also have Mr. Kundu, Olanu Kundu, who is a chief director in the office of the DG, and that takes care of the team that will be dealing with comments. Without wasting much of your time, Chair, let me ask Dr. Naidu to lead us in making the presentation. Dr. Naidu is going to cover the white paper process, which is very much advanced. We're probably sitting at over 95% right now in terms of completing that white paper. It is going through the cabinet processes. It served in the FOSAT cluster of DGs last week, the subcommittee of DGs last week. It will serve in the full committee of DGs this week, and after that, it will go to the subcommittee of cabinet before it goes to cabinet before the end of August. The minister's intention is to launch the white paper by the 15th of September. So we are planning backwards, a very tight deadline that we have to meet on the 15th of September. We started the process more than 2 years ago in 2024, and we've consulted quite extensively. Chairperson, without wasting your time, let me ask Dr. Naidu to lead us. Doc.
Thank you very much, DG. Good morning, Honorable Chairperson of the Standing Committee on Appropriations, Dr. Maimane, to all the honorable members of the committee, the Honorable Minister, the Honorable Deputy Ministers, DGs, CEOs, colleagues. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. I'm in a place where our Wi-Fi is not too stable, so with your permission, I'm going to ask that I switch off my video so that we can get the best of the input that I will be making. Chair, so thank you very much for the opportunity. As you would see, the presentation before the committee will provide, as was requested by the committee, an update on the white paper on local governments, the review process that we've undertaken, and then various matters that were requested from the committee as well. The presentation is structured as follows. We have broken it up into 3 different parts. Part A will deal with the white paper on local government. We go into quite some detail as to the process that we have followed. Secondly, we will look at the state of local government finances, the list of municipalities categorized as was requested by the committee, support provided. We will also touch on the review of the local government funding fiscal framework, but also to look at the withholding and release of the first tranche of the equitable share. Our third part would, as part of the other matters, look at preparations for the local government elections, touch on a matter specifically raised by the committee, work that we've deposited as part of preparing for the elections, and then touch on the legislative pipeline of the department. So the purpose is to provide the Standing Committee with this update, as I've just alluded to. Part A, which would deal with the white paper on local government, and I think the point has been made already in that the review is central because of the maturity that we've achieved over the 30 years of our local government democracy and the initiatives that we've undertaken in this regard. So why the white paper review? So underpinning this, we believe that the review could just no longer be postponed. It becomes necessary because the system is quite under sustained pressure. And across the system, we are seeing governance instability, we see financial distress, we see service delivery failures, weak accountability, infrastructure backlogs, and uneven municipal capability. So this review process is therefore not, routine policy updates that one would take from time to time. It is a structural reform process aimed at addressing weaknesses in the system. So the focus moves beyond simply sustaining the existing system, but towards building a local government model that is more capable, that is differentiated, that is financially sustainable, but also accountable. We've delineated the focus in the following manner. So firstly, it gives effect to the 2025 SONA commitment to address structural weaknesses. So apart from just being referenced in the 2025 SONA, His Excellency had also referred to this review process in the 2026 SONA. It advances the Government of National Unity priorities. It aligns with planning tools in government at large. It supports the National Development Plan on professionalized administration, stronger governance, financial sustainability, and accountability. And lastly, it reinforces national priorities around infrastructure investments, economic recovery, spatial transformation, climate resilience, and inclusion. The review process also proposed 5 major pillars for local government change. So the first being that we have one local government system. This translated means a stronger national coordination center, an authoritative powers and functions map, a single intersphere calendar, and data-driven oversight, amongst other things. Secondly, to have clean and capable political and administrative governance, which would include ethical leadership, ensuring that we have minimum competencies, clearer separation between political and administrative roles. The third being differentiated powers and functions, and a pathway towards a single tier future. The fourth is partnership-based relational governance, and this shifts the system from compliance-based participation to having genuine partnerships with citizens and structured partnerships with traditional authorities. And then fifthly, financial and service delivery reform. This principle is that finance must follow function, and the reform agenda must address own revenue erosion, strengthen revenue collection, adjust grants, eliminate unfunded mandates, and improve trading services. So just how is the process unfolding? Honorable Chairperson, the process has been managed as a very structured policy review and reform process. The department has moved from consultation and public comment through the consolidation of inputs towards the finalization of a revised white paper that is intended to be, as alluded already by the Honorable Minister and the DG, through the cabinet system. And I will touch on that in a bit. So in reality, the emphasis has been on making sure that the revised policy is not just conceptually sound, but also becomes one that is implementable. So we start by on the 7th of May, when the white paper, at least the draft at that time, was gazetted for public comment. So that was the 7th of May, closing date of the 28th of May. And after the closing, we had received 158 submissions from across the spectrum. As a broad team of experts, including officials from the department, we had a final in-person writing retreat that took place on the 20th, 21st, and the 22nd of July. We are now in the process of, after having concluded the review, the analysis of the submissions that we had received, looking at entering into the cabinet cycle. So last week, we were at the technical working group of the GISCD, the Governance, State Capacity and Institutional Development cluster. We were at the technical working group, presented the work that we have concluded already, with the view to making other stops along the way as we get to a full cabinet meeting. And as already indicated, the target is to have presenting this white paper review to cabinet at the end of August. I think the date that is being proposed is the 22nd. Lastly, and if all goes well, we would want to have a public launch of the work that we have done, the review process, on the 15th of September. So this slide just elaborates the cabinet submission roadmap. These are must-stop fora before you can eventually get to the cabinet meeting. And as you can see there, it is proposed for the 26th of August. One of the most important shifts in the revised white paper is that implementation must be placed up front. Chapter 1 states clearly that cabinet adoption should not be the endpoint, but that it is a step towards implementation. The revised white paper must link immediate visible improvement with longer-term systemic reform. It must also describe COCTA's leadership and its stewardship role in close conjunction with the presidency and the National Treasury. The main implementing actors must be identified early up, including the Department of Monitoring and Evaluation, including provinces, municipalities, SALGA, Public Service Commission, and other state organs. Most importantly, and as we've indicated in red there, is that the white paper must answer who must do what, by when, through which mechanisms, and with what accountability. So the evolution of the white paper is demonstrated in this slide. So 11 chapters in total. The first chapter is one that gives an overview of how the process was unfolding, what lives in the white paper document, and then this slide unpacks at a very high level what is dealt with in chapters 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, as you would see on the extreme right-hand side. The key message that we would want to communicate here is that the process has moved from broad policy reflection to concrete reform design. It had to respond to public submissions, to concerns that were raised, as well as deal with legal, fiscal considerations and implementation realities. This slide then talks at a very high level again to chapters 7, 8, 9, and 10, as well as 11. You would see that chapter 7. Now, when you contrast this to the 1998 white paper, very little mention was made on the institution of traditional and Khoisan leadership, whereas here we have dedicated an entire chapter that talks to the institution of traditional leadership. The options for implementation, and I suppose that this becomes one of the key slides. So under consideration presently are 3 implementation options. The first is a transition management body, which would operate as a practical implementation system after white paper adoption. It would focus on matters such as sequencing, unblocking, and monitoring reform delivery, with a strong convening role and a 90-day local government transition plan. And a little bit more about that in the ensuing slides. Version 2 is the local government coordination center model. So this would function as a formal coordination mechanism for transversal local government issues, looking at matters such as shared data, impact review, burden reduction, and an IMC for horizontal coordination, an intergovernmental forum for vertical alignment, as well as having in place expert work streams and implementation protocols. The third version is a system coherence architecture, located around the IMC and PCC architecture. So this is a bounded architecture with political, technical, and vertical layers. So these versions would become clearer as we finalize the manner in which the transition management body or the implementation of the recommendations would be taken going into the future. The implementation mechanism must also manage 3 pathways simultaneously. So the first pathway is sector reforms already underway. Now, many reforms affecting local government are already being driven by sector departments, regulators, and public entities. The role of the implementation mechanism would be to map them, assess their implications by municipalities, identify overlaps, as well as contradictions, and align sequencing and escalate unresolved conflicts. The second pathway is sequenced implementation of white paper priorities, and the first task would be to produce a detailed implementation or transition plan within 3 months. And the ideal that we're working towards is to ensure that this implementation plan is in place before the next local government elections, so that when we have new councillors, a new term of office being established, that this new term is dealing with these reforms that we would have concluded by that time. The third pathway is long-term restructuring of the local government system. So this slide just expands the time horizons that we've delineated into 2. So the first being that immediate action and long-term reform must be managed together during the interim transition. And this left-hand side of it identifies transition from 2027 to 2031. On the right-hand side, so the 3 interim pathways are immediate stabilization and recovery, and this would be from the time zone of 2031 onwards. The 90-day local government transition plan, so it should be rapidly established so that it can begin work immediately after cabinet adoption consideration of the white paper. And ideally, as I've indicated already, it should be in place before the next local government elections. So what will the revised white paper achieve? It will present, firstly, a clear, coherent, and implementable reform framework. Secondly, it would state the main reform logic upfront, reduce repetition, and strengthen cross-chapter coherence. It would make implementation visible from the outset and then function as a practical instrument for reform, not only as a statement of principle or policy intent. Honorable Chairperson, I will now move to part B of the slide deck, which deals broadly with the state of local government finances. So we just reference at a very high level the 257 municipalities at a glance. So this also are the delivery system for local services to all of our system. It consists of the 8 metros, 44 districts, and the 205 local municipalities. It also indicates that the metros generate 85% of national economic activity and serves 46% of South African households, or 8.9 million households. Suppose that the key point here is that the 250 municipalities are not a uniform delivery landscapes. Metros carry major economic significance. Districts, on the other hand, anchor the district development model, and local municipalities, particularly in rural areas, often carry large service delivery responsibilities with limited revenue bases. We reference on this slide the audit outcomes of 2024-2025. And as you would see, of the 257 municipalities, 255 had been audited by the 31st of January 2026. I think this is a major achievement because never before has this number of just 2 municipalities has been reflected as not having achieved their annual financial statements. However, only 39 municipalities or 15% achieved clean audits, a decrease of 2 from the previous financial year. A total of 117 or 46% received unqualified audits with findings, and then that 75 achieved this only through audit process corrections. The next slide just also indicates metro audit regression. Honorable Chair, the metro picture is very important because the 8 metros account for 61% of estimated local government expenditure. The slide shows that the City of Cape Town, the City of Johannesburg, and eThekwini achieved unqualified audits with findings, while the City of Tshwane, Ekurhuleni, Nelson Mandela Bay Metro, Buffalo City, and Mangaung had received qualified opinions. The slide also records going concern doubt in Tshwane and Mangaung, and this has been going on for more than 4 years, but also with emerging concerns noted for Johannesburg and eThekwini. This slide captures the financial systemic risk in local government. We see also that unauthorized expenditure was 31.8 billion rand in 2023-24 across 174 municipalities. The slide also records that 44% of municipalities operated with unfunded budgets, meaning 113 councils adopted budgets that were not financially sustainable. It further indicates that 67, just about 68% of disclosed revenue was estimated by municipalities themselves as unrecoverable, pointing to a deep collection crisis. 20% of municipalities disclosed going concern doubt, with Tshwane and Mangaung disclosing this for more than 4 years. Municipal debt to bulk suppliers is also a national risk, with municipalities owing just over 55 billion rand to Eskom and more than 21 billion rand to water boards. Slide also records that just over 37 billion rand in revenue is lost through water and electricity infrastructure neglect, including leaks, illegal connections, and aging networks. This slide introduces municipalities receiving Section 154 support and municipalities under Section 139 intervention. I suppose that the key point is that support and intervention must be better sequenced, targeted, and monitored, and must connect to measurable turnaround outcomes. I suppose that the legislation that is in Parliament, the IMSI bill, which I will touch on a little later in the presentation, would go some way in terms of how Section 154 and Section 139 support and interventions respectively would happen going into the future. This slide continues the picture of municipalities under 154 support and Section 139 intervention. And here the important governance point is that Section 154 support and Section 139 intervention must not operate as disconnected processes. They must be linked to credible diagnostics, clear remedial plans, measurable milestones, and consequences where there is consistent non-persistence. Sorry, non-compliance. This slide identifies municipalities under the municipal performance turnaround strategy. So this is a cabinet endorsed strategy, and which indicates that there are 10 municipalities under this category. The point to emphasize here is that turnaround cannot just be generalized. Each municipality requires a clear problem statement, an agreed upon intervention package, assigned responsibilities, and that reporting must be against measurable outcomes. We now touch on a separate matter that deals with the withholding and the release of the local government equitable share, and that would be the first tranche in this financial year. We start by saying that Section 5(1) of the Division of Revenue Act provides that each municipality's equitable share of nationally raised revenue is set out in Schedule 3 of that Act. Section 5(3) of that same Act provides that the national department must transfer each share to the municipality's primary bank account in 3 tranches. So the first tranche was scheduled for the 8th of July, amounting to just under 46 billion. The second tranche to just under 37 billion, and which is scheduled for the 9th of December later this year. And then the third tranche scheduled for the 10th of March, amounting to 27.5 billion rand. The next slide indicates that so National Treasury approved that the first tranche scheduled on the 1st of July with 28 billion rand, scheduled for transfer to 158 municipalities on the 8th. Section 216 of the Constitution was invoked to withhold first tranche funds together with 120, just under, offset for prior year unspent grants. So the amount initially withheld by Treasury was just over 17 billion rand. And the slide records that the withholding initially affected 99 municipalities, which was then revised downwards to 69. On the 3rd of July, National Treasury submitted an amended payment schedule, revising the number affected downwards, as I've indicated already. But because of the late submission of the revised payment schedule, internal processes in the department resulted in those payments being made on the 9th of July, a day later. So this slide sets out the next round of releases. The withheld amount release reflected on the slide was 13 billion, just over 13 billion rand, affecting 69 municipalities. An amended schedule received on the 10th of July requested a release of the full withheld first tranche allocation to 10 municipalities and a partial release to 17. So as a result, funds for 27 municipalities were released on the 16th of July. The amount transferred was just under 5 billion rand to these 27 municipalities. A further amended schedule was received on the 17th of July, requested release to 22 municipalities, including full release to 2 municipalities, partial release to 13, and remaining balances to 7 municipalities. So these releases were processed on the 23rd, and on that day, an amount of just under 2 billion rand was transferred to 22 municipalities. The next step, or this slide, indicates the further release that had taken place on the 27th of July. An amended payment schedule received on the 21st requested partial release to 1 municipality and the remaining balance to another. So the withheld funds of these 2 municipalities were released on the 27th. Then the slide then goes on to indicate that a further release on the 31st of July, which concluded the complete transfer of all of the withheld funds to all of those 69 municipalities being concluded by the end of July this year. This slide then provides a breakdown of the first tranche transfers and the withholding status. So it provides for the first tranche and the subsequent tranches, and then indicating the numbers or the totals at the bottom row in this slide. So to mitigate the risk that we found ourselves in the withholding process that was there in the month of July, we've engaged the Treasury, in fact, on various platforms, but also on bilaterals between the ministry and as a department, as officials, and which sets out what, after those engagements, we propose as a mitigating factor or factor. So the key point to make here is that any withholding process must be one that is lawful, that is evidence-based, that is fair, and sufficiently coordinated between the Treasury and the Department of Cooperative Governance. The process must also protect the constitutional objective of enforcing financial management discipline while avoiding unnecessary disruption to essential municipal services where conditions are being addressed. So it is a 5-step process that we are proposing that talks about early identification and verification, sufficient consultation and engagement, to assess and make recommendations from the information at our disposal, to decide, but to also timely notify stakeholders, and then lastly, to implement, to have monitoring constantly, and then also review. The effect of the proposed process, we believe, will have constitutional alignment. It would be a process that is fair and transparent. It would buttress intergovernmental collaboration. There would also be proportionate enforcement, meaning that perhaps not all of the equitable share should be withheld, and maybe a portion thereof should be considered. Lastly, in that the department, we call continuously with the Treasury to see how we continuously concretize our collaboration on matters of this nature. We now move, Honorable Chairperson, to the National Treasury review of the local government fiscal framework. And why? Firstly, the equity and fairness of the vertical division of revenue is one that is highly, highly contested. So local government receives the smallest share, while concerns remain about the quantum of functions performed by local governments, the cost factors used for the equitable share, the adequacy of conditional grants, and the diminishing ability of municipalities to raise own revenue. Secondly, there are financial management failures, and this slide refers to unfunded budgets, municipalities in financial distress, and their municipalities meeting the MFMA criteria for financial problems. Thirdly, there are performance, leadership, and management failures, including service delivery failures, weak revenue billing and collection, leadership failures, as well as governance failures. So the scope of the National Treasury review, we've tried to capture it in the slide before us. The study, it poses 26 questions, and the key questions concern, in the main, 2 areas: the allocation to local government, and then the allocation between municipalities, or as is referred to often, the vertical and the horizontal division of revenue. On the allocation to local government, the review asks whether the quantum of nationally raised revenue allocated to local government is adequate to meet constitutionally mandated responsibilities, and whether new own revenue sources are indeed required. On the horizontal division of revenue, the review asks whether a more efficient model is needed to estimate the free basic subsidies. The second level questions that have been asked include the appropriate level of operating and capital expenditure required to meet constitutional responsibilities, how these can be made more efficient, and what own revenue municipalities can reasonably raise given their financial and administrative capacity. So this review that is undertaken, the department is a key and active partner in this relationship, in the review, together with other stakeholders. So the review must therefore help answer whether the fiscal architecture matches the functions and obligations of municipalities. So this slide just references the various milestones, which includes inception, the methodology finalization, the issue of data gathering, expenditure analysis, the adequacy of the local government share, the evaluation of the local government equitable share, and synthesis and closeout. So very importantly, by the end of this month, there would be a draft synthesis report that would be delivered. And then by the end of November this year, we foresee a final synthesis report, a close-out report that would bring conclusion to the local government fiscal framework review as being led by the National Treasury. Honorable Chair, I will now move to Part C, the last part of the presentation, which deals with the matters as indicated on the slide. So preparations broadly for the local government elections, and then looking at the legislative pipeline of the department. So just by way of providing some trends or information, it shows the number of registered voters for each of the local government elections that we've had, the past 5. The voter turnout percentage, you would see that it has been increasing and then decreased in the last local government elections, which was held on the 1st of November, 2021. The next slide indicates that the Constitution, read with the Structures Act, provides that the term of councils is 5 years, calculated from the day following the previous elections, and that elections must be held within 90 days of the expiry of the term. As the Honorable Chairperson has indicated, the Minister had proclaimed the date of the 4th of November on the Friday that has passed. Now, in keeping with past practices, and we've had this in place, and to ensure that we've had smooth preparations and management of preparing for the next local government elections, an IMC was established by Cabinet to oversee the arrangements and facilitate preparations for the local government elections. There is a technical IMC that is convened by the DG of the Department of Cooperative Governance, as well as the DG of the Department of Home Affairs, a clearinghouse, if one would like to call it, before we go to the political IMC, which is convened by the Minister of COCTA and consists of the following ministries. So the Minister of Home Affairs, the Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development, the Minister of Police, Minister in the Presidency responsible for state security, the Minister of Communications, and others and other stakeholders, including the Chairperson and the Commission of the Electoral Commission, the Chairperson of the Municipal Demarcation Board, the Presidency of SALGA. There was a specific matter raised in the correspondence from the committee in relation to funding. And we raised this on two levels. So firstly, to say that the department, in relation to the development of a councillor induction program, is collaborating with the National Treasury, the Department of Public Service and Administration, the Auditor General, SALGA, the local government CETA, and the National School of Government towards preparing for that induction, but that this induction is wholly funded by the local government CETA. It has also been, and drawing from information that the IEC reported to the SCOA, and I think this was in May already, that it was allocated an amount of 3.2 billion rand for the entire elections preparations, including voter registration, logistics, communication strategy, etc. The communication from the committee also made mention of the participation of the Honourable Minister at the launch of the Get Up, Show Up vote, which was launched on the 4th of April. And to say that the campaign is aimed to combat voter apathy, increase civic awareness, encourage participation, particularly amongst youth and first-time voters. Of course, this was endorsed and promoted by the Honourable Minister in collaboration with the IEC. And the Minister had also urged citizens to, and I quote, stop complaining from the sidelines and instead participate actively by voting. On the right-hand side is the logo that was launched, and then also a quotation from the chairperson of the Electoral Commission indicating that this logo represents inclusive civic activism, shared patriotism, and national pride. It does not lecture, it does not demand, and it does not overcomplicate. For information, we've provided the timetable for the local government elections, which was also on Friday published in the Government Gazette. This is more of an infographic that spells out things in a much more simpler manner as the version that was proclaimed on the 7th of August. Suppose the key point here is that all spheres of government must align their administrative, their legal communication, and operational preparations around the electoral timetable to avoid gaps during the transition period. Suppose that the last proclamation that would need to happen is the Department of Home Affairs declaring the 4th of November as a public holiday if they have not done that already. The work that has been done by the department together with the National Treasury as well as SALGA in ensuring that we have a single coherent transition management instrument to protect legality, continuity, and accountability was the development of a transitional circular. So this is quite a very detailed, comprehensive circular that deals with a range of issues to ensure that we provide proper guidance before the elections, during the elections, what should happen, and then also what should happen post the election. So it provides for a step-by-step detailed guide as to how these pre, during, and post-establishment priorities should be dealt with by municipalities, provinces, as well as by other stakeholders. Our legislation pipeline, as I've indicated at the outset, we've limited it to the three bills that we have before us. The Local Government Municipal Structures Amendment Bill, or very, very often referred to as the Municipal Coalitions Bill. So on the date that the elections was proclaimed, the Minister had also published a Rule 276 notice in the Government Gazette indicating the introduction of this bill into Parliament. So this bill, amongst others, will guide the formation and management of coalition governments and make it mandatory for the conclusion of coalition agreements. It will also deal with limiting the calling of motions of no confidence, and also for the time frame for the establishment of mayoral committees when the executive mayor is removed or vacates office, or broadly a vacancy is created in that office. Secondly, the Independent Municipal Demarcation Authority Bill. This bill was referred to Parliament in June of 2022. And because of the enormity of the changes, or the number of changes that were being effected to Act number 27 of 1998, it was decided that that entire Act of 27 of 1998 be repealed in its entirety, and that it be replaced with a new bill. So as we speak, or today, the National Assembly will consider the bill, and then if it is approved, will then proceed to the President for consideration. The golden thread that runs through this bill is the requirement for continuous community and public participation, both on outer boundary changes, but also on inner boundary delimitation. If one has regard to the way in which the scheme of consultation takes place around delimitation, this present legislation, it is very, very rudimentary consultation that is required, whereas in the bill that is before the House requires much more detailed and intensive and active participation. Importantly, the bill also provides for the establishment of a demarcation appeals authority, trying to make it easier or provide more access to aggrieved persons, instead of, as is presently provided, for turning to the courts. It provides for an appeals authority as a first step of recourse for persons that are aggrieved. I mentioned earlier the Intergovernmental Monitoring, Support and Interventions Bill. It is commonly being referred to as the IMSI Bill. This was referred to Parliament on the 31st of March last year. It gives effect to sections 100 and 139 of the Constitution, which deals with national and provincial interventions respectively. Importantly, it provides for an early warning system and creates a more structured and transparent framework for interventions going into the future. So this early warning system is also cross-referenced with the Office of Standards and Compliance, as is provided for in the Public Administration Management Act, which falls under the purview of the Department of Public Service and Administration. Honorable Chairperson, the recommendation is that the Standing Committee on Appropriations notes and discusses the contents of the presentation as made to the committee. I will stop here and hand over to the Director General if he wishes to make any further comments, Honorable Chairperson. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Naidu. I'm going to hand over to the Minister. Chair, that is our submission. And back to the Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. The presentation is, as has been done by DG Changana and Dr. Naidu. I'm satisfied on our side, Honorable Chair and colleagues.
Thank you very much, Minister, and thank you to the team and the officials that are here. Let me firstly, I think just having gone through the timeline to get the white paper on local government done, congratulate the team on the work that has gotten so far and congratulate you, Minister, because this matter has been ongoing for a long time in terms of at the end of every cycle, we talk about the review on the white paper on local government. So I'm grateful that we are here at this point. I think there'll be many debates and discussions as it pertains to questions around the withholding of funds and the engagement of National Treasury. I'm glad you've come around to the 5-step intervention that you raise in the presentation. And furthermore, obviously and naturally, all political parties here will be interested in the question of demarcation because that will have its own material, local government implications, but furthermore, in terms of how voters and votes are distributed. So I think I'm looking forward to our deliberations as we proceed now. I will recognize a number of members who will put forward questions, and then we can go from there. We'll allow the department to respond accordingly. If there's a member who would like to put some questions forward, you will now indicate so by putting up your hand. Honorable Galega Mazibuko, you are on there. Honorable Douglas, you are recognized. And then Bateman. Honorable Gamete, I see Honorable Siade, and then Ntuli, Waitlin, and Sigete. Let me begin with Honorable Galega Mazibuko. You can proceed from there. I see Honorable Mwali, you have just come on. That's fine. We will go from there. Honorable Galega Mazibuko, you are recognized.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good morning to you, Chair. Good morning to the Minister on the platform, and good morning to the members. Chair, let me first echo your sentiments in appreciating the completion or the stage where the review of the white paper is currently. It has been indeed been on the process for a very, very long time. I remember one was still with local government and one was serving in the Salga National when we were hoping that this white paper would come to a conclusion, with an immediate effect. So we appreciate the team for having gone so far and heading to the completion of the white paper. Chair, appreciating the presentation and appreciating the 90-day transition plan, one would want to know what specific legal authority, budget, personnel, and enforcement powers will the proposed implementation mechanism have, and who will ultimately be accountable, if this 90-day transition plan is not implemented. So I think that is what is lacking on the report. And secondly, Chair, on the financial distress, that signals the matter of municipalities which do not sufficiently connect diagnosis to intervention with regard to 39 municipalities achieved clean audits, while 99 received modified opinions, and 215 of 255 audited municipalities were materially non-compliant with key legislation. Can the team then please provide the committee with a detailed explanation of how municipalities will move from diagnosis to recovery, particularly where previous interventions have failed? Because there have been interventions before and they failed. Lastly, Chair, on the IMC and IGR forums, I'm interested to know how effective these forums are, both technically and politically. How effective they are in terms of being proactive. Because my own view is that if these forums were effective as required and proactive in dealing with municipal issues, municipalities wouldn't have been where they are today. The state of the municipalities we see today, my view is that if these forums were really active, because they've been there ever since, So that's why, Minister, I want to know how effective this forums, and if not, how they can improve so that in the future we don't have the municipalities to dilapidate to the state where they are today while we have these important IGR forums. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Galega Mazibuho. May I recognize Honorable Douglas?
Good day, Honorable Chair, and good day to the members and to members from the department and the office. Thank you for this opportunity. I greet you all in the name of my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, and also in the language of the Khoisan San people. I'm going to say Kaites. Mr. Chair, I agree with a lot of the admissions actually made by Treasury about a lot of what has happened over the last year or few years. Government tells us that the equity and fairness of this vertical division of revenue is highly contested. It tells us that government receives the smallest share of nationally raised revenue, the municipalities. It questions whether the cost factors in the equitable share formula are appropriate. It acknowledges the diminishing ability of municipalities to raise their own revenue. And then comes the most devastating admission of the department itself. 157 municipalities are in financial distress and 225 municipalities meet the MFMA criteria for financial problems and crises. So, Chairperson, this is something that was brought to us by coalition governments and by the ANC and the DA and the EFF and others who have been running these coalitions for the last 10 years. Some of them got elected, and now they want us to support a problem. This isn't just 225 separate municipal problems, Mr. Chair. This is one national systemic problem that needs to be dealt with. Yet we continue blaming municipalities individually for the consequences of a fiscal architecture that government itself now admits requires review. So this is a failing of the GNU, and it's a failing of the Treasury Department. It's a failing of the Minister of Finance. Based upon his own presentations here, he should resign. The 2026 budget allocates local government only about 9.4% of nationally raised revenue, despite municipalities being the sphere where citizens actually encounter the state every day. That's where they don't have water because of the current coalition governments. That's where they don't have services on a day-to-day basis, where they're being evicted by the DA in the Western Cape.
Honorable Douglas, can I disrupt you for 30 seconds?
Sure.
As you can hear, there's an alarm going off here in Parliament, and so I'm going to ask Honorable Galega Mazibuho if I could ask you just to chair this component of the meeting. We have to do this drill, and literally that is the process. So, Honorable Galega, if I can ask you to chair, then we will continue from there. If I don't see you again, honorable members, it's been real.
We
no
love you,
problem,
Mr. Chair.
As long as members would know who
Be
follows
safe.
who. I don't have the list of speakers. Yeah, you can continue, Honorable Douglas. Thank you.
So my question is fundamental, Honorable Chair. Thank you, and I pray that everybody will be safe in Parliament over there. Does the current formula adequately measure the real cost of poverty, of rurality, of spatial apartheid, of infrastructure backlogs, unemployment, and the inability of poor municipalities to generate their own revenue? Where are they going to get this money? Or have we designed a formula that inadvertently rewards municipalities that already have strong economic bases and permanently manages the decline of those that do not? How is a township, Mr. Chair, or a rural economy that doesn't have big economic power, how are they going to increase their own revenue? So that's why things like twinning agreements with international municipalities, like what MK is proposing, is important. We need to bring financial and fiscal intervention by doing new things. We need to beneficiate our minerals, own the land, give people land from the land that's within the municipalities, and make sure that we start beneficiating our minerals locally. So when are we going to actually see that municipalities are already financially distressed? Treasury invokes Section 216 and withholds billions of rands of their equitable share. Their own presentation shows that 17.6 billion was initially withheld, affecting 99 municipalities. And it subsequently records that 28 municipalities went through the withholding period without receiving any of their equitable share funds at all. So I ask the question, how does depriving an already financially distressed municipality of the money which it must provide water, sanitation, electricity, and refuse removal, rehabilitate that municipality, or do anything to help the situation. It's only going to make the situation worse, and especially in Black and colored and Indian communities where there is no economic activity because of apartheid planning and because of the ownership by white monopoly capital of our economy, and them only looking at an extractive exportive economy without beneficiating those minerals locally. So because you're not withholding money from just a municipal manager, you're withholding services from citizens, Mr. Chair. And the poor child in that municipality did not steal the money. The pensioner did not cause irregular expenditure. The unemployed mother did not appoint the corrupt contractor. Punish the corruption. Punish those municipalities, those people who have stolen. Prosecute those who steal and recover stolen assets. Remove incompetent officials. This nonsense of people resigning when they get caught out and then nothing happens to them must come to an end. And that's because of the ANC. That's because of the DA. Look how much billions the DA has been stealing in Cape Town. Look how the Hawks are raiding their offices all the time, and the DA MACO members are being arrested. Mr. Chair, we don't have time for this nonsense anymore. People must be set free from poverty. Mr. Chair, the IMF itself argues that for tighter alignment of transfers with municipal spending capacity and stricter conditions around transfers, South Africa has also recently entered another 1.5 billion rand World Bank development policy loan linked to the structural reforms in electricity, freight, water, and sanitation. Therefore, my question, Mr. Chair, is what fiscal policy commitments associated with international lending programs affect local government and municipal infrastructure, public expenditure, privatization, or private sector participation? And has Parliament been given the full fiscal implications of those commitments? Because we're seeing the DA and other municipalities privatizing municipal services and using their white-owned monopoly capital to try and deliver services. Mr. Chair,
Objection, Chair. Please, can you stick to the presentation?
Can we please be orderly, members? Honorable Douglas?
Yes, ma'am.
Please stick to the questions.
I've been asking my questions, but I had to make sure that I provide the foundation for my questions as well. So I will continue with my questions and then I'll be finished. I'm almost done, Madam Chair. So why after three... Yes, thank you, ma'am. Why after 3 decades has the system produced conditions in which 225 municipalities meet the criteria for financial problems and crises? And what are we prepared to change about the system itself? Because, Mr. Chair, this whole system that Treasury has developed, the equitable share, and how they have withheld the finances, smacks of the victimization of the poor, smacks of the victimization of Black and colored and Indian communities, and even progressive white communities, Mr. Chair. Because if almost the entire patient is sick, we should stop blaming individual organs. And okay, so Mr. Chair, so I just want to say we need to change things, and we need to. The finance minister needs to resign. The DG needs to resign for what's in their own reports. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Douglas. Just on a lighter note, it's not Mr. Chair now, it's Madam Chair on the steering wheel. Thank you. Honorable Bateman.
Thanks very much, Madam Chair, and good morning to the Minister and to all those from the department who are present, to my honourable colleagues. Thanks very much. In News 24, on the 23rd of July, the headline was ANC Mayor suspended after 5 weeks for refusing cadre deployment order. The reason I raise this is because the matter of political interference in appointments is a very significant issue that we see in local government, and it's also something we see in other places like the Public Investment Corporation. But the question is really, how do we change the law to put an end to political interference? And the department does correctly say that the reforms should include merit appointments, professionalization, ethical leadership, and consequences for corruption. 100% agree with that. But how do we make sure that people are appointed on merit? And how do we stop political interference? And how do we ensure that there are consequences for corruption and for negligence? These are the critical things. And so I would like to know if the department will support legislation that does make it very, very difficult, if not impossible, for there to be political interference, and also which will strengthen mechanisms for corruption being addressed and followed through properly, so that we can ensure that we do have demonstrated competence, and that is the decisive criterion for appointing municipal managers and CFOs. And again, on the corruption point, what are the proposals that are there to make sure that the law has teeth and we really do see that there are consequences for corruption and for negligence? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Bateman. The next is Honorable Siate.
Chairperson, it's myself.
Honorable Kamete. Okay. Honorable Siate, you will follow after Honorable Kamete. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. You we start manje neforce yami, Honorable Siate. No, without dwelling much, let me first greet you all members. Greetings to the delegation from the Department Cooperative Governance and International Affairs, led by the Minister Ubaba Uhlabisa. Sibingelele kuba bonke abakhona namhlanje emhlanganweni. No, Chairperson, I would like to first quickly go to page 7, page 11, page 16, 21, and also page 23. A risky divide between policy vision and financial realities. The review of the white paper on local government sets out a strong vision for system coherence and structural reform, but it faces a severe reality check from current local government finances. While the document outlines plans for a single tier municipal structure and long-term transitional pathways running through 2031, the immediate data shows widespread system distress. Of 44% of municipalities operate on unfunded budget, bulk debt to Eskom and water boards stands at around 76 billion rands, and only 15% achieved clean audits in 2024-2025 financial year. This contrast suggests that high-level policy reforms may struggle to take root in municipalities where basic administrative functions and financial viabilities are already collapsing. Chairperson, my question will specifically deal with page 12, page 17, 28, 29, 30, and also page 39, revolving intergovernmental friction in grant withholdings. Given that National Treasury invoked Section 12 and 16 of the Constitution to withhold the first tranche local government equitable share allocation from 99 municipalities on the 8th of July 2026, a figure that was revised down to 69 on the 3rd of July and progressively released through late July. How will the Department of Cooperative Governance and International Affairs ensure its system coherence architecture and the 90-day local government transition plan prevent similar delays in the future, particularly when late transfer schedule submissions disrupt municipal operations right before the upcoming 4 November 2026 local government elections? Chairperson, I would also like to, because I've seen, I think it was page 7 and 15 and 17, and also page 43, align the 90-day transition plan directly with the National Treasurer's LGFF study. For me, Chairperson, I think it would be very much important that we prevent underfunded mandates and structural budget deficits from undermining incoming local council post-November 2026. COGTA and National Treasurer should formally integrate the findings of the local government fiscal framework synthesis report to end September 2026 directly into the 90-day local government transitional plan, rather than relying solely on post-elections administrative handover. The 18-month first wave reform package must establish unforeseeable binding sector delivery protocols and mandates cost reflective tariff structures before transferring new operational powers or functions to distressed municipalities. Thank you very much. I'd like to stop there, Honorable Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Kamete. May we then proceed to Honorable Siate.
Honorable Galega Mazibu, I just wanted to say before Honorable Siate, I have returned. Parliament is no longer on, it's not on fire, so I don't want to, but I have returned. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So my powers are gone, honorable members. Welcome back, Chair.
I hear the meeting was going in one direction, so thank you. No, thank you, Honorable Galega Mazibu. We can proceed. Honorable Siate.
Thank you, Chair. May I just ask that I don't show my face due to technical issues. So greetings to the department, greetings to the minister present and all honorable members. I have about 2 questions and I would like to then ask what is the measurable turnaround targets that will be imposed on the financially distressed municipalities. And the second one could not have been stressed enough by all members. What are the consequences that will apply where municipalities have repeatedly failed to meet those targets? So on the issues of the consequence management models, we would like to then know what is then in place for that. Then the second question would be, how will the proposed reform distinguish between municipalities that are structurally, financially non-viable and those that are potentially recoverable through improved governance, revenue collection and management? Then lastly, Chair, I just want to put it to Honorable Douglas that here in this committee, we call a person that we wish to be charged with a crime and that we want the court of the law to take responsibility for that thing. That whole process is called, that person we call a criminal. We don't then go and find a term using political parties to associate that situation, because if we're going to go take it that far, then that argument will not make sense, because even MK members themselves were members of particular parties that they want to associate crimes to. And then just try to put your points across with clean and fair integrity and respect to others, because in this committee, that's how we do it here. So do not provoke us, do not do that to us. A criminal is a criminal. If you want them to be charged, you say the charge. If there's a transgression, you describe it, then you formulate questions. That's how it's done here. So I just wanted to close with that, Chair. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Honorable Siate. Honorable Nduli.
Greetings, thank you very much, Chair. Greetings to you, Dr. Mudula Stulo, and all honorable members, and also greetings to Minister Dr. Ngoche, and Deputy Minister Dr. Namani. We are very grateful for availing yourselves to this very important meeting. And because as Parliament, we may change and do laws and everything, but the main thing, bophelo ba batho, they are within local government. When there's electricity, no water, bad roads and everything, local of government, which is before asking my questions, you should have left the power with me, Mekalega Mazigoko. And again, I'm tempted to say to the question which was asked by Honorable Bateman regarding the people who are being elected on to be councillors, to be candidates. Actually, and he mentioned the mayor of the ANC. So in that regard, I'd like to say ANC is not giving out jobs. People are not applying to be councillors or candidates. We go to communities with guidelines where we look for people with integrity who are competent, people who will never take their girlfriends overseas with the public purse. That's how ANC operates. The community them to be their leaders. And again,
Honorable Ntuli, I don't know if it's just me, but
my question is that
your signal is being lost.
What has been lost? The person is the reason is that I'm on the road. Even now, it's still lost. It's still lost.
If you keep your video off, then it might help the bandwidth a little bit.
Oh, let me try it now. How's the network now, Chair?
A bit better, honorable member. Maybe if you ask the questions and then let me
But have
hear
you
how
got
it
my
works.
point that we are nominating people with integrity who will not be taking their girlfriends overseas with the pairs of the public? Have you got my point on that? I want Honorable Bateman to get that point. And
Honorable Ntuli, I can gather that this has been a conversation prior to me being here. So if we can proceed with the questions, because what I'm trying to avoid is to get to the department. I will appreciate that.
I would like to ask that what were the precise conditions for withholding and releasing the LTCs, and what independent evidence was used to verify that each municipality has satisfied those conditions? And can the National Treasury provide a score with municipality by municipality reconciliation of the 17.6 billion initially withheld, showing every release, remaining balance, reason for withholding, and date of release? And also, what will happen to MMs and municipal managers and the mayors who are not adhering on improving the state of their municipalities on billing and on paying what they should pay in time? Actually, what will be measures will be taken to dysfunctional municipalities? Thank you very much, Mudula Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Ntuli. Honorable Wakelin, you are recognized.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, Honourable Minister and Honourable Committee members and Honourable members. Chair, before I start, I would just like, you unfortunately had to go, but we cannot allow that members reduce this committee to chaos, and because with the same measurement they issue, they can be receiving as well. Chair, I request that we please keep this committee respectful, focused on the matter at hand. Thank you, Chair. And I do agree with the submission that was made by Honourable Siati, and I want to be clear. We cannot allow this continue in such fashion. Chair, just a few matters as far as the presentation is concerned. If I may just start off a few concerns, comments, and then I will use it to some questions. My first matter of concern is around that there's a number of intervention that has taken place over many years. It's the matter of Section 139, Section 154, MSIP, MPTAS, the FRP, financial recovery programs. There are a large number of intervention that has taken over many years now. And it seems to me that none of that actually worked and has rescued local government. Why would this intervention of the transition management body, the interim transition management body that I want to introduce, actually make a difference? I cannot see the change to happen. We do not, and the trend I followed with the submissions made by members is that we do not trust the submission because of previous interventions that has failed. So that's just a comment I wanted to make, and possibly a question that will come from there. Chair, then, we keep on, and I think it's an important matter. It's a matter around funding for local government. And at the stage when the white paper or the regional act was designed, around 9.7% is allocated to municipalities because there was an assumption or an assumption that the income generation income streams is vast and that municipalities are self-funded. It seems to me that the model has changed, or the inadequacy of collection and management thereof is an aspect that we have not addressed properly. And that brings me to a much bigger problem. We cannot just say it's inadequate funding, Chair. It must also, the blame of failure of municipalities must be laid in front of institutional failure of bad management, corruption, ill discipline, non-commitment, and weak performance. And Chair, those areas must be addressed and not just the funding matter. And I think that is something that we need to address clear from the onset. Thank you, Chair. And then, Chair, as far as the department's assessments are concerned, what was the cost of the existing intervention that has happened? And what were those results? And I would request a detailed report based on all the intervention that has been made and the cost implication, money that was thrown after these programs that I've mentioned earlier, and what have they actually resulted in. We need to have a detailed understanding the cost implication of previous intervention that has been made. Then, Chair, and that's a matter, it's obviously the elephant in the room that nobody wants to talk to, but let me speak to that. Who was responsible for this breakdown of coordination between National Treasury and Cooperative? What were the consequences of the affected municipalities? And what specific institutional changes will prevent a repeat of these situations? It became quite clear that along the line when the withholding of some of these grants, there were some altercation that took place. I want to know who were the responsible people? Have they fixed it? Can we continue? And can we make sure that this tranches are paid subject to the intervention requirements as that was laid out by National Treasury? Then, Chair, a pain for me, and a thorn in the side, like Paul was saying in the Bible, is the matter of external consultants. Chair, I've got a cost here, 1.6 billion rand, which includes a 530 million rand that was used for financial reporting. How will Cooperative ensure that expenditure on consultants result in a transfer of skills and permanent institutional capacity, rather than municipalities becoming dependent on consultants? And what measurable reduction in consultant expenditure does the department expect over the next 3 years? Chair, that's a fundamental matter for me. We need capacity municipalities to do their own financial submissions. They still need to be audited. But to spend 1.6 billion rand on consultants is unacceptable. Then, Chair, last question. The presentation has identified unfunded municipal budgets, poor revenue collection, outstanding debtors and creditors, and persistent underspending and failures. How will the review between the different municipalities that are either underfunded and who is actually have got a weak performance and management system, how will that now be identified with this new white paper that will be submitted, and that we will allocate correct interventions as opposed to keep on blaming underfunding as the problem? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Wakelin. Lastly, Honorable Sigede.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, let me also welcome the presentation done by COCTA. Let me thank Minister Hlabisa and DM Masemola and the DG and his team for a high-level presentation. I only have two questions, Chair. Mine is, which specific interventions have demonstrably improved the performance of the 10 municipalities cited, and what is the detailed plan for a costed plan for scaling those interventions to other distressed municipalities? And my second question, Chair, is what 5 to 10 measurable national targets will government use to demonstrate that the WPLG reforms are actually improving municipal governance, finances, and the service delivery over the next 5 years? That's my two questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Sigede. I see Honorable Mwali. Is your hand freshly up, or did I miss recognizing you before?
You had recognized me, Chair. I'm struggling with my network here. This thing keeps on kicking me out.
Okay, no, sure. Honorable Mwali, you can proceed, yeah?
Yeah, let me shoot, Chair. I've been covered by other members, so I don't want to repeat what they've asked already. I also would like to ask that I keep it my video off. Chair, there's a SALGA intervention. There's COCTA in the provinces. There's national COCTA. There was a district development model in the municipalities, but the picture that we see on the performance of these municipalities continue on a downward spiral. And from this presentation, Chair, I'm struggling to pick up what is it that is going to be implemented systematically in this municipality that would then move this municipality from the downward spiral direction to the other direction. Firstly, to administrate them properly. Secondly, Chair, on the issues of service delivery, because that's primarily what the municipality it's their mandate. Local government is the primary responsibility of local government, which is service delivery. Chair, I'm also struggling. How are we going to then see services getting to our people? When you look at the slides where they are tabling, or the slides where they are depicting the outcomes of Auditor General, when they talk about performance, that we have 38 municipalities that are sitting with disclaimers. Some municipalities, 46 municipalities are sitting with unqualified with findings. That still says there are issues. Only 15% of 100. So that means 85% is still having a problem. Only 15% municipalities are with a clean audit, and 85% tells you there are issues. So really, Chair, from this intervention and also this white paper review, I would really want to know what is it that would then give us a better picture of what we are seeing currently right now, because we end up also fighting with the National Treasury when they then start implementing or start revoking some sections of the Constitution. on these municipalities, particularly on the last month they had revoked some equitable shares on 69 municipalities, and then we had an intense engagement with National Treasury. But it doesn't also remove the fact that these municipalities are on the downward trajectory, Chairperson. So I would really want to know from the presentation, what is it that is going to be implemented to change the picture of these municipalities? That is particularly my question. Thank you.
Thank you, honorable members. And what I would like to request, I want to firstly reiterate the point that was made earlier by a number of members. As part of the Standing Committee on Appropriations, we genuinely focus the matters on what the appropriations bill and its implications are on municipalities. I think I'm going to ask members that, particularly in the lead up towards local government elections, that we maintain the integrity of the purpose of the meeting and the decorum and the discipline that speaks thereof. So may I ask that we reiterate that particular point, because here, whilst I accept that there are other standing committees, and certainly portfolio committees, here we really need to genuinely focus its implications, particularly in the nature and the seriousness of this discussion. Because, and my questions really speak even now in understanding, were we to adjust within the spending envelope of 100%, if we are to adjust the equitable share or the municipal allocation, that has profound implications on the entire budgeting cycle. And so I think we can politicize matters, but when it's said and done, this is a fundamental issue about how municipalities fall apart. So I'm going to request that we really remain disciplined, as it were. So, Minister, and to the team here, I guess my question, the first is, this committee has had countless times from SALGA. SALGA's submission to the appropriations bill is that it is somewhere in the 60% of middle-class South Africans cannot afford their municipal rates and, by extension, to pay municipal services. So at one level, I want to understand that you have a relationship problem here. The CEO highlighted correctly that municipal debt to ESCOM poses a significant threat. Now, given the fact that the first, if you like, business model says we on-sell bulk services and receive payment, and then we levy on rates and taxes. One, what is the department's thinking around saying, and whilst I can appreciate there are other issues, we can talk about economic growth, we can talk about the rate of inflation. I get the economics of the fact that a growing middle class is good for municipalities. But the reality at the moment is that SALGA are raising that particular question, and by all accounts, municipal debt to ESCOM is increasing progressively. So I want to understand, one, how in a contested space of the proposed proportion of the increase of the local government's sphere of allocation, what is the department wanting to peg that at? At this point in time, it is at 9%, just over 9%. What do you propose? There are political interventions on different cuts. Others would argue it must be higher. I sort of take the view that we should do less with provinces because the functions are concurrent and are reputable. Therefore, municipalities then matter. The only way you can increase that allocation is to deal with provinces. What is the department's view on this matter? Secondly, I see in your slides, you talk about the governance framework. Now, both those are captured not only in the white paper on local government, but the Systems Act, and speak to how councils are constituted. Now, it's been a while, perhaps maybe in reading the particular coalition governance framework. But part of why municipalities failed, having been a councillor myself with Honorable Galega Mazibuko, is the fact that in many ways, the legislature, through its committees, is often incapable of holding not only the MMCs accountable, but in terms of its own, these are often councillors are not full-time, and as a result, they don't really develop the capability of holding their very respective MMCs to account. And so that ends up being in some ways dysfunctional. So I want to understand how we remedy for that, at least as envisaged in the local, in the white paper on local government, so that we can enhance the question you put forward about accountability. So in the light of that, and then ultimately, is it not about time that Minister Hlabisa, I'd like to hear your views as a point you've raised before in other public fora, which is that the competence of councillors is often untested. So I can have someone who can't read or write on the list. Let me say bossa so that I can speak, so that no one feels I'm attacking a particular party. And so what happens in that instance is that these people are deployed into municipalities, and then they have to deal with the legislative component and then fall apart. Is there not enough thinking, at least, and especially going in towards elections, that we need to ask, as we've seen in other jurisdictions in Africa, what the qualification level should be of a councillor? I could understand this question in 1994. In 1994, it was common cause. Education was provided for a certain group of people for under those pieces of legislation. But I would argue that given the success of the 1994 dispensation, where education access has moved to closer to universal access, we can debate the merits of whether the quality is correct or not. But now that we've got universal access to education, is it not time that we set a particular benchmark as to what could qualify as a councillor? Or otherwise, you can have deployments that occur where people can't do the very work you are requiring of it to do, which is accountability and governance. And then perhaps on another day, given that part of the crisis that we face in South Africa is the safety of citizens, is it not important that we begin to amend the Metro Police Act? Because at the end of the day, given the high levels of murder and how what we are seeing in other municipalities, they are starting to, if you like, in Gauteng, we began to see the deployment of a particular type of police manpower. We see it in the city of Cape Town and in various places. How do we amend that bit so that it is governed by law and it is able to achieve the safety of all outcomes or of citizens? I think I ask those questions because we can debate the here and now, but we have to think about municipalities over a long period of time. And just maybe, Minister, at your own indulgence, you don't have to really comment on this issue, but this issue of synchronizing elections is being raised because as we prepare towards November 4th, these elections are 3 billion rands. The national elections are coming in a few years' time. Given the tightening fiscal space, can we not harmonize these so that we can ultimately end up with elections taking place across all three spheres nearly at the same time, so that we can achieve not only cost savings, but we don't have to have, as people come into office, they immediately get distracted by the next election. And so governance falls apart at times. Let me park my questions there. You can, Minister, maybe you make a few comments. We want to try and keep moving, and then to the department, you will have half an hour to answer all the questions respectively. For those we don't get through, naturally, you can try not to defer them to written responses, but some details obviously are required in written format. Thank you so much, Honourable Minister. Let me hand over to you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chair and Honourable members, for the questions raised. I would request Honourable Chair DG Shangana and his team to respond first. We do also have Deputy Minister Masimula in the platform. Once they have responded, he can take any question he feels have not been responded to, and I will conclude with the last part of your questions, Honorable Chair. DG.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Honorable Minister, let me ask Dr. Naidu and Mr. Edenrecht to respond to the questions first, and then I'll take up a few as well. Dr. Naidu.
Thank you very much, DG. Good morning once again to all the honorable members and the officials on the call. I want to firstly respond to the matters raised by the honorable chairperson, because I'm excited to make a comment on a specific matter. And then I will try and respond to matters raised across members by lumping issues together. The matter that I'm excited to present to the meeting and the issue raised by the honorable chairperson about competency requirements for councillors. Now, we note in section 1D of the Constitution that every adult citizen enjoys universal suffrage, meaning that if you're an adult, you can vote, can stand for an election, and if elected, you can hold public office. It has become, as the honorable chairperson has indicated, time that we look at competency requirements for councillors. And what we have introduced as an amendment to section 21 of the Structures Act is competency requirements for councillors. Now, we have not limited the rights of all councillors, but we have said that for those municipal office bearers and for those that are holding particular chairpersonships of section 79, section 79A, which is MPACs, and section 80 committees, two, and I quote from the bill, must possess the experience, skills, or qualifications relevant to local government, or be capacitated to perform such functions optimally to promote the efficiency of the municipality. So, Honorable Chairperson, that is what we've introduced in the coalition's bill. Hopefully, as we enter the local government elections, it would be in place to ensure that those offices are occupied by such persons. And I'll speak a little bit more about that in a category under professionalization, which was raised by other honorable members. The issue around municipal police, the department's also working around the issue of powers and functions of municipalities. So to address the issue of the finance follows function, the matter relating to funded, underfunded, and unfunded mandates, something that was also raised in the committee, is something that we are working on. So something that we are trying to see how we align, link with the local government fiscal framework that the National Treasury is busy engaged with. So to find some kind of alignment and how the one, feeds into the other. The harmonization of elections is something that has been looked at in the past, and I think that one of the factors that held back the holding of elections of national, provincial, and local government elections at the same time was the planning cycle of government. So where funding normally being allocated or finalized by the executive would inform that which the local sphere of government would get, needs to be followed in that sequence. But I talk at a very high level on that specific matter. and maybe in part of a written response that we would want to give to the committee, we would want to see how we elaborate on that specific matter. On the issue of the local government fiscal framework review, and it has been raised by various members. It was raised by the Honorable Douglas. It was raised by Honorable Kameda, as well as by the chair of the committee. Now, this work that the Treasury is undertaking is also informed by work that SALGA and the Department of Cooperative Governance had undertaken some time ago, concluded towards the end of last year, and which study was handed over to the National Treasury to inform the work that they have been doing. The Honorable Chairperson makes a very important point, and he may have not have said it in the words that I use, but we must be mindful. We must understand that we are working under a sealed fiscal envelope. Meaning, if you're going to have to increase funding in one sphere of government, another sphere of government has to give, because that pie is only as big as it is, and we need to divide it accordingly or equitably as we do presently. But there's also other things in motion that we need to be aware of. The one is that in the study that we had undertaken, it indicates that if there is more fiscal effort by local government, meaning that if more effort is put into obtaining revenues owed to it from other sources, it could be in a better position. Now, the Honorable Chairperson raised the issue of ESCOM debt. So that is debt owed by municipalities to ESCOM, to water boards, etc. But what we're also looking at as a department, as a ministry, is the opposite of that. What about debt owed by government, organs of state, to municipalities? So to improve the financial sustainability, viability of municipalities, we're in the process of engaging various sectors, the National Treasury, the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure, to see how best we're able to, as Section 216 was invoked, to do the same for other sphere of government that owe municipalities funding as well. The issue of professionalization, and I will link it to the use of consultants, the legislation on political interference, etc. So we believe that if we have a competent cohort of leadership in municipalities, so leadership meaning both on the political side, but also on the administrative side, it would go a long way in terms of professionalizing local government. We talk about political interference, but in the Code of Conduct for councillors, we have a provision that says that a councillor may not interfere in the administration. So we believe that on the one level, through that provision in the Code of Conduct, it limits political interference. But on the other hand, in the interventions or the amendments that we introduced in 2021 in the Systems Act, where we had said that those persons holding political office in a political party may not hold a senior management position. But in that legislation, we had even gone further to say that all staff should not be part of holding political office and being in the employ of municipalities. However, you would know that the second part of the input that I've just made was found to be unconstitutional, and as things stand, it is limited to senior managers in municipalities. Around audit support, and I want to link this to the distressed municipalities matter that was raised by some of the honorable members. So what differently would the department be doing, perhaps with its stakeholders, with its partners, in terms of reversing the negative audit outcomes, limiting the number of unfunded budgets, looking at seeing how best you do not have, or you have a zero number in terms of late submissions, annual financial statements. On the 2nd or the 3rd of July, we had established a 10 by 10 forum with the Auditor General of South Africa. 10 meaning the National Department of Cooperative Governance, together with its 9 COPTAs, and the National Office of the AG and its 9 provincial offices. We have done this to ensure that we have a better, more focused intervention dealing with poor audit outcomes. And one of the things that we have said going into the future, it may not be immediate in terms of eliminating the 113 unfunded budgets that we have, but progressively, we want to see how we get to a point of zero in terms of adopting unfunded budgets. We want to maintain a zero in terms of the non-submission of annual financial statements. Of course, it's going to require concerted efforts by the 10 by 10, but also by other stakeholders, be it National Treasury and SALGA and other players in the space. The matter relating, so how will we ensure authority for implementation? And this was raised by Honorable Aleka. I want to start by saying that the white paper is just policy, and that endorsement will not automatically create enforceable obligation. And this is where the transition management body would come into play. Now, the transition management body, and we said that we would want the TMB to finalize the work before the next local government elections. And we also said that that TMB or that work that would be done must be jointly led by ourselves, by National Treasury and the presidency. And we believe that through that TMB, of course, it's going to be looking in depth at the recommendations that have been made by the white paper on local, or the revised white paper on local government, which also makes recommendations or proposals on which pieces of legislation that needs to be amended. So presently, it's looking at structures, the systems, the MFMA, the Water Services Act, and a host of other pieces of legislation. And we believe that through that, we would want to see how enforcement becomes the order of the day. Like I've said already, it may not be immediate, but we would want to see how we ensure that enforcement is indeed taken to another level to fix our local governments. The last point I want to make is, and it was raised by the Honorable Ntuli, so what criteria was used to withhold the local government equitable share? So the Treasury had indicated that the debt that was owed to ESCOM, the debt that was owed to water boards, debt that was owed to the Auditor General of South Africa, South African Revenue Services, and pension funds was used as criteria, but also those municipalities that had a very high level of unauthorized, irregular, fruitless, and wasteful expenditure on the books that were subjected to the Section 216 intervention. Of course, over a period of time, as indicated in our slideshow, the withholding, the number was decreased and decreased and decreased, as this was only done after those affected municipalities had shown active or had put in place actions that showed that, or gave the Treasury comfort that indeed they were dealing with the problem at hand. DG, I'm going to stop there and hand back to you. If I've missed out anything, you will guide me accordingly. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Naidu. maybe I should ask Ms. Letta to come in as well on 1 or 2 questions before I come in. Ms. Letta.
Thank you, DG, and good morning, good afternoon, Honorable Minister, Honorable Chair, Honorable DMs, and all protocols observed. DG, I think there's just one question, maybe. I think Doc has covered me fully. Maybe just on the one relating to the funds or the budget relating to the 90-day transition, local government transition plan. And to say, Honorable Member, that it is anticipated or proposed by the white paper that this plan is work that will be done as led by COCTA, but also working hand in hand or hand in glove with the Treasury and as well as the Presidency. So matters relating to funding, we are anticipating that the DCOC will be responsible for that. I think Doc has covered all the others. DG, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Letta. Dr. Naidoo has covered quite a number of questions, but I'm just going to amplify 1 or 2 or 3 areas. The first one is on the unfunded budget, but linked to it is also the issue of underfunded mandates. I think it's there are municipalities in the country that do not have a massive revenue base, but they are managing very well, and they're managing what they have, despite the fact that these are rural municipalities with no big revenue base. One example, if you look at Muma, they may be battling with services, but over the last 3 to 5 years, that municipality, which is predominantly in the former Transkei region, has managed its finances very well. They have delivered a clean audit, despite the fact that they don't have a substantive revenue base. And those who do not know, Muma is the Greater Batawet and Namaku in Eastern Cape. And there are similar municipalities in Limpopo as well that are relying heavily on the national fiscus, but they are managing the little budget that they are getting from the national fiscus. So in the accountability ecosystem, the starting point is to get those who are entrusted with the public funds in the municipality to manage the little that they have. There is no sphere of government currently that will argue that it is adequately funded. As we all know, at the national level, we've been administering a significant number of budget cuts. There is no department that has escaped the budget cuts. And we do know that if you can't grow the revenue, then you have no choice but to live within your means. In other words, you have to cut somewhere, you have to prioritize somewhere. Municipalities will have to do the same. We're not going to be able to resolve that problem of financing municipalities in the short term until we grow the economy. Because at the end of the day, the municipal trading services, water, electricity, sanitation, they're all going to rely heavily on a performing local economy or provincial economy or national economy. So the number one priority for the country, not just at the municipal level, the number one priority for the country, and it's in the MTDP, is for us to grow the economy. Because if we're not growing the economy, the disposable income of ratepayers is going to be under pressure. The municipal income is going to be under pressure. Municipalities are going to find it very difficult to to pay for the bulk services from water boards and from ESCOM. So it's more of a vicious cycle, and precisely because the economy of the country has not been performing consistently for a very long time. We've been struggling to even reach 2% in the economic growth. Municipalities are not living in an island. That poor economic growth affects them as well, just like it affects national government. At the national level, the second biggest item in the budget is that debt servicing. At the municipal level, the big item is also debt servicing to bulk service providers like water boards, ESCOM. They're now even battling to service SARS, the AGSA, and pension funds. And it's a criminal offense for municipalities not to service the pension fund or to make the pension fund contributions. So that figure of municipalities at risk, more than 150 municipalities at risk, is a reality, unfortunately. And those are figures that are coming from national treasury. We have to deal with that, and we're not going to be able to deal with it decisively until we grow the economy, unfortunately, because an economy that is not growing affects everyone. It affects ratepayers, it affects municipalities, it affects provinces. When we met with Treasury and we discussed the erosion of municipal services, those municipal, so the erosion of municipal revenue, because there's no question about the fact that the municipal revenue instruments, most of them are not buoyant anymore. The fuel levy, which is imposed by metros, it's not buoyant anymore because there are substitutions or substitutes in that space. If you look at the RSC levy, we took a decision to do away with it long time ago because there were institutional challenges that were flagged about the business component of it and also the payroll component of it. So a decision was taken in the mid-2000 to do away with the RSC levy. And we have not replaced it with any buoyant revenue instrument. So which means that for a very long time, municipalities are going to struggle to raise revenue. Ideally, we would have loved a situation where National Treasury has concluded the local government funding framework before the local government white paper is concluded. But it's not a train smash because Treasury, they have targeted to release the first draft, and the local government framework, funding framework, is more operational than the local government white paper. So they're likely to release that framework in the first draft is September. We were told that the final draft will be released in November. Now, National Treasury, COCTA, the presidency, and the two main sector departments, water and sanitation, energy and electricity, together with SALGA, will be responsible for the implementation of the 90-day program. And they will be responsible for the implementation of the white paper as a whole. It's going to be what these 5 departments are going to do that will make it possible for this white paper to be implemented. There's a chapter in the white paper that deals with professionalism, administration as well. The issues that are being raised about the capacity of councillors, the qualifications of councillors, those issues are being raised very sharply in the paper, in the white paper, in the administration. And we raise them mindful of the fact that councillors, like all of us, have a constitutional right to serve anywhere in the structures of local government. So whatever decision that we take in the implementation of those policy objectives in the white paper, they will not be unconstitutional. If there are areas that are going to require constitutional discussions. We know the process, and that's not what we're focusing on at this stage. There may be certain areas, maybe in the future, that will require constitutional amendment, but processes are known. Most of the things that will assist us to turn municipalities around are within our legislative control. I really don't think that at this stage we really have to rush into amending the constitution. The issue of the withholding, Dr. Naidu has covered it, and the main issue there, which is what the two ministers have discussed, is that the process is as important as the outcome that we want to achieve. In other words, we need to crystallize that process of withholding, because the withholding is in the Constitution. It's a constitutional mandate for National Treasury. But what we said in the meeting, and both ministers have asked us to manage this process going forward, is that we need to make sure that we consult as adequate as possible. We take the intergovernmental structures on board. We take those who are going to be affected on board, and we manage the process as COGTA and National Treasury. COGTA and National Treasury must lead in the management of the process. It's public knowledge now that there were certain areas where COGTA and Treasury were not seeing eye to eye on. The question is being raised that will it help to withhold the equitable share, especially for municipalities who are not doing very well. In the accountability ecosystem, there are various instruments that we use, and 216 is one of them. And it gets raised, 216 gets raised as a last resort, that if all fails, then we go for that 216. Please bear in mind that if Treasury doesn't do what is expected of it, Treasury can be taken to court as well for not doing what is expected of it. But what we are saying as COGTA is that let's manage that process properly. Constitutional clauses like 216, they need to be managed with care. We have to follow the process properly. We need to consult adequately before we activate it as the last resort. I think the Minister of Finance made it very clear that that clause gets activated as the last resort after all other instruments have been activated. Now, the issue of the institutional failures in the Constitution. If you look at the Constitution, when all these instruments that we use to turn municipalities around, they get implemented in a hierarchical way. For instance, you start with Section 154, which is a support package. It's an intergovernmental support package. That's what we are doing right now in Buffalo City, Nelson Mandela Metro, Makana. The three spheres of government come together, a package, an approach on what is it that needs to be done. For instance, we know exactly what needs to be done in Buffalo City. It's been raised very sharply by SCOPA. But for all of these things to happen properly in that ecosystem, first at a local government level, it means things must work in the administration, things must work in the council. In other words, your MPEC committees must function, your DC boards must function, the investigations must be done by the municipal manager. If there's one part of the chain that is not working, it slows down other parts as well. For instance, the principle that we all know is that in your UIFWE, your unauthorized, irregular, fruitless, and wasteful expenditure, nothing will be condoned without consequence management. The condonation is directly linked to consequence management. And consequence management will not function if the council committees are not working. And the council committees, such as MPEC, must receive those investigations, those reports. They must recommend to the DC boards in order for that consequence management ecosystem to function. All of those parts of that system must work together. Now, in some instances, investigations will be done by the administrators. The MPAC will defer some of the investigations that are presented to them, and that delays the process. And then those investigations and recommendations will not go into the DC board. And that's what we do first. When we intervene in terms of 154, we activate that entire ecosystem. If it doesn't work, then we up the intervention. In other words, we move out of 154 to 139. We can start with 1391A, which is a directive. And if that too doesn't work, we go to 139, 1B, all the way to 1397, which is the the national intervention, which is what we are doing in Ditsobotla. Currently in Ditsobotla, you have a national cabinet representative because we have activated section 1397 together with section 1395. So all these constitutional measures are meant to be activated. But when we get to 216 or even to 1397, it is because nothing has worked. And therefore, we have to run the process all the way, even up to dissolution, because the last one is the dissolution of the council, which is exactly what we're experiencing in Ngwate. And it's unfortunate that it had to be imposed by the court, the constitutional court in this case. So in the ecosystem, we think that there are quite a number of instruments that have to be used to hold others accountable and also to make sure that we stabilize municipalities. So when we activate 216 and we activate 1397, it is because some of the instruments have not functioned very well. I haven't seen in this country any privatization of municipal services. What I have seen is the partnerships. We've seen Gautrain, it's a public-public partnership. The government of Gauteng would not have delivered that state-of-the-art rail infrastructure if it was not for the PPP. We've seen a concession at Ilembe, I think it's more than 30 years old, and that's a partnership. The assets belong to the municipality, but there is a concession with a private partner to run those assets and make sure that they are maintained properly and that revenue is collected properly. So the longest PPP in the municipal space that I know, which is not tantamount to partnership, is Caesar Water at Ilembe district. We do have Mbombela Water as well in Mpumalanga, but those are not. That's not privatization. That's a partnership. That's using your grant, your revenue, to leverage more revenue from the private sector to maintain your assets and to deliver on service delivery. So, Chairperson, I thought those are the questions that were raised. The IMC, the effectiveness of the IMC is very effective. We started with the worst performing municipalities. And our target, I'm sure the minister will talk to this as well, is that no municipality in this country should be allowed not to submit financial statements. That's our goal, that every municipality must submit annual financial statements. That's the starting point. And no municipality should be allowed not to submit annual financial statements. And then we can move into disclaimers, deal decisively with disclaimers, knowing exactly what is in the financial statement. What are the issues that the AG have raised in the financial statements? And we work very closely with the AG. We had a 10 by 10 a month ago, just to take a deep dive into those areas that would require immediate intervention. I think most of the members of the committee are very much aware that Umnuma, at the time it was called Butterworth Transitional Local Authority. That is where we first implemented Section 139 of the Constitution. It was in the first generation of municipalities that were performing very badly. We are encouraged now to know that the provincial treasury, provincial COCTA, working very closely with the office of the premier, working very closely with the municipality itself, the city manager and the CFO of that municipality are leading from the front and they're highly qualified, and they delivered a clean audit for a municipality that was deemed to be very problematic and very difficult. So we are of the view that we will be able to turn those municipalities around. We need to do the right thing, make sure that we have the right people in those positions, city manager, municipal manager, CFO. Those are two critical positions. We must appoint the right people for those positions so that we can turn the municipalities around. Thank you very much, Minister. I will then back to you.
Thank you very much, DG. A Deputy Minister might like to say a few words in response, and then we conclude.
Thank you very much, Bulawayo, Honorable Minister, and the chairperson of the committee, and all honorable members in attendance. I think to a larger extent, the DG, together with his team, have covered quite a lot of issues in responding to the comments and questions raised by honorable members. I just want to comment on 2 points, Honorable Minister and Honorable Chairperson. The first one is the issue relating to what Honorable Douglas raised, broadly commenting on the difficulties and the problems that municipalities are experiencing, and to the extent of the policy constraints and as well as limitations. Very briefly, I think it would be quite important for us to appreciate the fact that we have repeatedly and continue to account that the 1998 white paper policy had its own assumptions and as well as policy limitations. And to the extent that for the past 2 years, as it was reported in the meeting, a policy review process was undertaken to respond basically to all those areas of limitations and reset the system quite appropriate for high performance, but most importantly, for appropriate policy responses on a number of areas, including the issues on the funding of municipalities. I think to that extent, it would be quite important and proper to appreciate those issues so that we don't always raise matters as if there is no commitment of the system through various engagements in government. And I suppose by the time the policy gets adopted by the cabinet and it's ready for launching next month, all South Africans will be able to see the extent to which we would have tried as much as we could to address those policy limitations. So I think for me, that's a very proper process that has got to be noted with appreciation, of course, with related understanding of possible constraints and still the need to build the capacity so much required as we move towards the 4th of November and beyond, so that this reviewed policy could be implemented very seriously by those who will assume responsibility of governing those 257 jurisdictions. The second point, Bulawayo, also relates to what was raised by Honorable Wakelin. In his prelude, he actually qualified his comment that to the extent of his understanding of the state of local government, he is very unsure of the report as presented, whether we are making progress in impacting those localities or not. And I think the DG did try to give a comprehensive framework and the approach on how we actually engage in the invocation of Section 154 and where necessary, Section 139. And I think it would be proper, probably, because of time today, Honorable Minister, that we may come back and take colleagues and honorable members through some of those specific projects of intervention and support that we are actually involved in, mindful of the situation in some of those municipalities before, we could basically be together with them and focus them on the actual systems improvement and as well as re-engineering of related constraints and as well as difficulties, which would have accounted differently on the state of such municipal bodies. So I think it would be quite proper to bring ourselves into the same frequency at some point so that we appreciate the work that is done going forward. But suffice to say, as I conclude, Bulawayo, that it is going to be and it will remain a function of the system, including political parties, being able to avail to these jurisdictions, possible candidates who would actually have the necessary capacity or the necessary potential to be trained and as well as being capacitated so that they can do exactly what Honorable Chairperson of the committee, Honorable Maimane, said, that levels of accountability seem to be a challenge in the entire system. And I suppose as part of our collective work in this regard, we would be in a better position to impact these systems efficiently going forward. I think those are the few points I wanted to comment on, Honorable Minister, in appreciating all what has been given to us as food for thought, processing, but also looking at those matters very closely going forward. Thank you, Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Minister, for that response. Honorable Chairperson, on the question of synchronization of elections, indeed, Honorable Chair, this is a matter to be politically engaged going forward, looking at the benefits and advantages of holding elections at one time in terms of cost, in terms of aligning when the provincial and national leadership comes into office. 2 years later, new councillors come in. When you have just taken 2 years to work together, then the elections come. It is indeed a matter that must be engaged politically and well informed in terms of the benefits, in terms of running one elections for all three spheres of government. I may not like to take it far because by and large, the buy-in at a political space is the one that will manage to take the shape of moving towards one election for all three spheres of government. And secondly, Honorable Chair, the colleagues responded on the qualifications of councillors, that in terms of the law, if the Constitution gives a right to vote to an individual, irrespective of his or her education level, it becomes difficult to prescribe that once you are elected, then there are positions you can't occupy if you don't have certain competencies. But a bold political move should be done across, because honorable members will agree that there is no requirement for members of parliament, provincial and national, to be elected as members of parliament, but also to be deputy ministers or ministers. Now, a similar approach, if we want to professionalize the leadership in government politically, we will need to engage this one other than focusing in the one sphere of government. But the only tool in the hands of the electorate, Honorable Chair, are the voters. The voters are the one who can shape their municipality by looking at the content of a councillor they vote. Because no one can force them that you are compelled to vote this person if they say this person doesn't have competence. Because we know him, we know him in our ward, he or she is not going to be able even to read and comprehend and even understand the budget he or she is dealing with. For now, that is where we can get comfort. And we are raising this issue in the white paper review that political parties, when they deploy mayors, speakers, deputy mayors, EXCO members, MPEC chair, they are the one who should bring fresh air in the local government space, because there is nothing that compels them to deploy someone who does not have necessary competencies to comprehend the budget and even set a direction for a municipality. Once councillors are competent, at the time when you cannot determine that in terms of the law, but political parties can determine who becomes a mayor, who becomes a speaker, as I have indicated. We will then stop this failure in the local government space, and when we can begin make a shift at a political party level, as all parties in the National Assembly are the ones who will be leading the local government space. I think, Chair, I can only go as far as that one in terms of the competencies for councillors. It will be a wonderful thing if that can be prescribed by law, and we will need a move by all political parties at most to say, let us regulate public representatives across three spheres so that it doesn't target one sphere and someone may challenge it in the court of law only to find that it doesn't stand when it gets challenged. Other than that, Honorable Chair, we appreciate the question raised by honorable members. We will review them when we go back into our meeting as a ministry to see the other areas that needs to be attended in order to make the local government space work for our people. And we are confident that the new councillors coming in will give a fresh air in the local government space, with all the support coming from the structures of government at a national and provincial level to support and shape the direction for our municipalities. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair.
Firstly, thank you, Minister, and thank you, Deputy Minister. I think our engagement today locates itself in the crucial question as to what within the spending levels would we be able to adjust local government for, so that that proportion of its share is compensatory for all the headwinds that are coming towards local government, but also deals principally with where then the deductions come from. Because I think it is just over 2.1 trillion rand doesn't suddenly grow because you ask it to grow. It is the fixed amount that has to be distributed across all three spheres of government. I want to thank you for the presentation that has been put forward. I want to welcome interventions that speak to how we ensure there's a separation of political interference in decision-making abilities of local government, because I think as other honorable members have lamented on this particular engagement, that levels of corruption in municipalities make it hard to feel like you are throwing money after bad. And when there are governance failures, A, they achieve the withholding of funds, but B, you end up with a greater challenge of the fact that money then suffers profound leakages through poor management, the poor payment of pension funds, etc. I want to echo the sentiments that have been put forward, Honorable Minister, and you can have undertaking that this question of government departments owing municipalities cannot be sustained. It's clear, or whilst it's not a whilst it is a significant proportion of some of the debt owed to municipalities, it is inexcusable that a government department simply cannot do that. And already I can see through some of the reports, a conflict developing between some of the schools in Gauteng and the municipalities in Gauteng. And therefore, that question from a committee point of view is something that we are going to have to engage on. I wish you well on the public launch of the white paper and its own consultation throughout, because I think it's going to be important. I cannot stress enough our support and endorsement for the strengthening of the capability of ultimately councillors and those who hold executive office. And I share your sentiment about the fact that it shouldn't only be applicable to one sphere of government. It should be such through all spheres of government. And the lessons we can learn from other parts of Africa, because if you went to Kenya, the law is expressed differently. And so I will ask that we maybe engage at another point about what the appropriate, as I've alluded to, funding proportion for local government looks like and where we go. But with those short remarks, I do wish you well, all the best towards local government elections. We look forward to a peaceful, to a fair and a democratic election on the 4th of November. And hopefully we will have municipalities and councils that operate in a manner that is of the best service of the people of this country. So thank you very much, Minister, and thank you to the team. Let me to the committee at large. We have no further business today. We will convene tomorrow at our briefing session with, if you like, National Treasury to deal principally with two matters. The first is obviously the outstanding matter from the previous meeting on OCPO, which is when we monitor what the quarterly expenditure looks like and some of the expenditure framework that goes with that. A presentation has been sent. And as many members will know, there's a special appropriation that has been proposed that I've requested National Treasury to come and do a briefing on, so that the committee can be brought into confidence about what are some of the allocations that are going into the Department of Minerals, Resources and Energy. I think it is, that ordering must be done correctly. So that will be at tomorrow's meeting. That we will resume at 9 a.m. Is that correct, Mashile? At 9 a.m. on a virtual platform, and then we'll proceed on that basis. Is there anything else, Mashile, that I should know?
No, we don't have any further announcements, Chair. You've captured all we have.
With that, honorable members, I want to thank you and I want to adjourn the meeting. I will see you all tomorrow. Thank you and good afternoon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
See you this afternoon.
Thank you.
Recording stopped.